Well, Trump spoke in a couple of places in Iowa where he was noticeably confused and got into some pretty bonkers rants and rambles. We'll get to the stunningly confused moments in a little bit, but first, he also spewed some pretty vile nonsense about January 6th. Of course, this is taking place right around the 3-year anniversary of January 6th. Bunch of clips to go through, starting off with this. Here is a rather sweaty Trump lying about January 6th.
And those people have to be, many of them, I guess there's some. By the way, there was Antifa and there was FBI. There were a lot of other people there too, leading the charge. Leading the charge. You saw the same people that I did.
So 3 years later, the guy who incited a mob to attack the Capitol in an attempt to block the peaceful transfer of power is still pretending like it was Antifa or the FBI, quote unquote, leading the charge. He knows what he did. He knows what caused everything on that day, but he's choosing to lie about it, to deflect the blame. And as I've said in the past, the conspiracy theories about January 6th and the incoherent and ridiculous claims that was Antifa or the FBI that's really to blame, to me reveals that people like Trump and many in the right wing perpetuating these conspiracy theories, they know how bad January 6th was in the eyes of the American people. The fact that a sitting president of the United States, after trying to block the peaceful transfer of power through multiple schemes like the fraudulent elector scheme, would then, as sort of his last chance to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, incite a mob to block the certification of the election. That's something that so many Americans are against. So many in the right wing and Trump have to make up nonsense like what you heard to distract from those facts. But then after saying Antifa and the FBI were leading the charge, Trump says this about those who are currently in prison for their actions on January 6th.
And we're not going to stand for it. And all of that stuff is going to be written out on day one. It's all going out. You know the steps when you make your speech in front of millions of people and you're making the beautiful speech, looking down to the white. That was one of the great scenes I've ever seen. By the way, I think J6 had an equal amount of people. It's the biggest crowd I believe I ever spoke to. You never hear about that, do you? You have the hostages, the J6 hostages, I call them. Nobody's been treated ever in history so badly as those people. Nobody's ever been treated in our country.
You know, I thought they said that they believed in law and order, right? People committed crimes on January 6th, so now they're paying the price. And by the way, he said the January 6th rioters who are in prison are being treated worse than anyone in the history of the United States. A truly ridiculous statement. Just think about that. In the history of the United States, no individual's been treated as poorly as the January 6th rioters. I can think of a few, I guess is where I'll leave it on that clip. Then we move to more lighthearted stuff, I guess. Here is this.
You will declare that we are going to take back our country. We are going to defeat crooked Joe Biden.
Country, he says. Then you have a rather confused Trump saying something that makes just absolutely no sense.
It didn't work. They had an almost $1 billion cost overrun on the magnetic elevators. Think of it, magnets. Now, all I know about magnets is this. Give me a glass of water. Let me drop it on the magnets. That's the end of the magnets. Why didn't they use John Deere? Why didn't they bring in the John Deere people? Do you like John Deere? I like John Deere.
So X added a community note to that clip saying, quote, magnets work underwater and are not affected by water. Magnet fields are not the same as electrical circuits. Indeed. Can you imagine if Biden got on some tangent about magnets and asserted that water makes them not work? The right would play that clip on loop as proof that Biden's mind isn't working. He thinks magnets don't work anymore when they're touched by water. Then in another one of Trump's Iowa speeches this weekend, he went on this ramble of rambles, and before playing it, it's so strange how he can't just properly construct an English sentence, put a period on it, and then move to the next one. Every sentence is this weird fragment that connects to another thought right in the middle of the thought. Then he jumps to a different thing. And on that, here's Trump, I guess, saying he could have negotiated a prevention of the Civil War.
I love studying the, if you take a look, the wars, I don't know what it is. The Civil War was so fascinating, so horrible. It was so horrible, but so fascinating. It was, I don't know, it was just different. I just find it, I'm so attracted to seeing it. So many mistakes were made. See, there was something I think could have been negotiated, to be honest with you. I think you could have negotiated that. All the people died. So many people died. You know, that was the disaster. If you got hit by a bullet in the leg, you were essentially going to die or lose the leg. That's why you had so many people, no legs, no arms. If you got hit in the arm or the leg, it meant you were up because the infection, gangrene. It was just such a, sort of a horrible time. But I was thinking to myself, because I was reading something, and I said, this is something that could have been negotiated. It was just for all those people to die, and they died viciously. That was a vicious, vicious war. And in many ways, look, there's nothing nice about it. But boy, that was a tough one for our country. But I think it's, Abraham Lincoln. Of course, if he negotiated it, you probably wouldn't even know who Abraham Lincoln was. He would have been president, but he would have been president. He wouldn't have been the Abraham Lincoln. Would have been different, but that would have been okay. It would have been a thing that, and I know it very well. I know the whole process that they went through, and they just couldn't get along. And that would have been something that could have been negotiated, and they wouldn't have had that problem. But it was a hell of a time.
My goodness. And y'all know I've talked to a bunch of Trump supporters at rallies, and they'll tell me that they've waited the entire day outside of a venue to see Trump speak. They'll wait all day in the sun, get sunburned, then push through a bunch of people to get to the front to listen to him speak for over an hour, these long, rambling speeches. And that's what they get. That's what they were waiting for. How on earth could that be worth it? Oh, I'm so attracted to the horrible of the Civil War. And, Abraham Lincoln wouldn't be Abraham Lincoln if he had negotiated an end to it. I could have negotiated. That could have been negotiated. And blah, blah, blah. Then you have Trump saying that people come to him, probably tears pouring down their face, and say, "Sir, how do you put on your pants in the morning?"
First they say, "Sir, how do you do it? How do you wake up in the morning and put on your pants?" And I say, well, I don't think about it too much. I don't want to think about it, because if I think about it too much, maybe I won't want to do it. But I love it because we're going to do something for this country that's never been done before, because this country is finished if we don't win.
Wow, so brave, isn't he? He's willing to wake up every single day, put on his pants, and then go out and spend the entire day trying to do what's in his best interest. So brave. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Just the best, simple way to support the show.